Greetings, everyone, and welcome to today's GT News webinar, Bank Relationships in the Cloud, the new way to centralize the complex banking landscape, proudly sponsored by TIS. My name is Tarika Adams with GT News, and I will be your host. Our speakers today are Witzel Reichman, EVP of Sales and Marketing at TIS, and Evelyn Stamm, Head of Treasury at BearingPoint. Before we begin, please listen to the following housekeeping points. If you experience any technical difficulties, please type them into the Q&A panel located on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. There will be a WebEx producer to respond to your questions immediately. Also, questions for the speakers should be directed into the Q&A panel as well. We will address as many as possible during the end of the presentation. Please be sure to send your questions to all participants. Otherwise, we may not be able to read it out loud. This webinar is being recorded, so if you miss anything or think a colleague would be interested, you will be sent a link to access the recording within the following week. I'd now like to hand you over to our first speaker for today, Mr. Witzel Reichman. Welcome, Witzel, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for joining today. Today we have a diverse audience from corporates, consultants, banks, and some vendors. I see a lot of already logged in, so thank you for taking the time and to listen to what Evelyn with her team achieved over the last month. First, before I start, I want to ask you a question, and maybe we can go one slide down. We are really interested in what are your current challenges, biggest challenges regards to the payments today, and how you see this. Maybe you can fill in that full question. It's the compliance and risk, or B, reporting. C, is it transparency? D, it's all about security, or E, process efficiency. I think it will take a short time to do this, 30 seconds or something like that. Okay. Nice to know from your experience as well, what are your challenges today. So I will start my presentation to explain a little bit what's going on in the market. Today we see a lot of pain points in CFO and treasuries. They're struggling a lot in answering CFO questions regarding the lack of transparency. How much cash is on the company accounts, and where is it spread out over the time? Or you see on a daily basis that your CFO is asking you, what are the transaction fees? What is our cash position, dollar, euro position? All these questions are really hard to answer at real time. Also, you see that our clients and the market is struggling with compliancy questions regarding how many accounts, how many bank accounts I've got over the globe, especially when you're working with different subsidiaries in different countries. It's hard to find this answer. And if it's also an answer you have to give to your auditors, it will take a lot of time. Really important what you see that our customers are struggling with signing that who is allowed to sign which account for which amount of money. We discovered also over the years that there's still a lot of manual work to be done, very time consuming, mostly on the Excel based, and it's very hard to get these figures out. So what you see is that companies are they're building workarounds for extracting manually payments files or upload them in the e-banking tools. It means that there's a strong dependency on a few employees and it's a lot of manual work, which is cost effective and not giving you the right answers to your CFO, which wants to know more about this. We've seen several times that treasurers and cash managers are carrying a bag of security tokens with them. If we are looking at the trends on this moment in the market, I think that's the next slide. Yeah, we see some trends. Some research from the CFO research showed us on this moment that 86% of the finance executives want to improve their connectivity with their banks over the years. 65% of the financial executives want to change, and they want to improve they see that there's a lot of communication and connectivity problems today. Really hard because the technology is moving fast, and the business demand is enormous to change something in the old world. What you see is that in the whole the payment transactions are moving into the cloud. Companies want to change their current setup and to get rid of the IT hassle and to ask people or companies to solve this. Based on this, one of our founders, Jörg Wiemer, was the former senior vice president in SAP for Treasury. He found out that it was a really painful process to do the payments out of an SAP or different SAP systems to the banks, and especially to different banks in different countries. By the way, Jörg Wiemer is a very experienced treasury and also financial expert with banking knowledge, corporate knowledge, and also treasury knowledge. And it's a gentleman, the smallest one on the left side. And my name is Wietse Rijkmans. I'm the big man on the right-hand side. But that's the team of the organization. So based on the experience of Jörg Wiemer, they built the organization together with Errol Bolzak. Errol was a former director of development in SAP and was already in an early stage involved in grid computing, later named cloud computing. So he built up our platform from scratch based on the knowledge of cloud computing. That he is an expert in this area, you can see because he already developed 33 patents over the years. Mr. Wolfgang Kalthoff is our COO, also one of the co-founders with a broad experience in managing SAP development teams, SAP data centers, and the whole support group. So the company started in 2010, and the idea started in 2006-07. They built the organization from scratch in Waldorf, and the idea was to build a leading platform for managing corporate payments, liquidity, and bank relationship on a SaaS platform, so no software and IT needed in-house. We are working with a very transparent business model. That means that we are connecting not only SAP in the early days, yes, we had only the SAP connector, but today we are integrating more ERP and also treasury systems towards multi-banks. It's directly connected host to host via EBIX, or in case of a SWIFT connection, we can do this via our SWIFT solution. As I said, using a SaaS platform will also has another advantage and benefit. It's immediately easy to implement, easy to use, and it's saving a lot of cost. We have done a lot of business cases over the years, and we see that the cost saving between 200K to $1 million plus is absolutely achievable. How does it look like? As you see, Smart Payments and Better Decisions stands for standardized, multi-bank enabled, automatic, ERP integrated, transparent. That means that in the old world you have on the left-hand side, you have the box of, you have headquarters, you have subsidiaries, in some cases shared service center, and top down you have a lot of banks, many banks with different formats and connections with different ERP systems. Today, to solve this in the old world, you have different banking tools, which means that you have to up and download your files out of your SAP system, your Oracle, Microsoft, HR, Treasury, name it, towards the banking tools. Or in some cases, you're using your Treasury system to do the payments, especially the payments to the bank. If you're a big company and you see this in the past, still a lot of consultants are working in-house projects and using some software. Very expensive, very unpredictable in telling when it's finished. The new world is based around this. This is in the middle. You're not changing anything in your organizational setup or in your business landscape of your ERP systems or back office systems. That means we are working with a little plugin which is holding your payment file out of your system and transform it to the PIS platform, which is connected directly host to host, PBX or Swift already to the system. As you know, Evelyn will tell you more about how does it work. We have three families on our platform. From bottom up, if you know exactly, you need to have your central repository of all your data, all your banking data, all your information about your bank accounts, who's allowed to sign, signatory rights. You want to have an overview of all your documents, bank documents and contracts. Then you can start with the BPM, which is the transaction monitor, which is plugged in on one side of your SAP and non-SAP system, where you can do your payments out of your system and transform it to our platform. And we are connecting with different banks. And vice versa, the result will send back to your back office system. If you have done this, you have a very nice overview of all your data. But then it starts with discovering your business. That means that we have put a business discovery manager on top, which is a platform where you can do comprehensive analyzing your bank relations, fees, and your payments. So we can address on the right-hand side all the topics regarding payments, regarding integration, regarding bank account manager, and we are ready for e-banking. We are started in 2010, as I already said, and we have a nice amount of customers or logos already as customers. It started with Adidas, one of our early adapter customers, where we built together the BAM. Our solution is built on the input from customers. So every day our platform is enriched by the knowledge from the customers from the field. We implement this in a very agile way. That means that the moment we've got the functionality ready from that customer, it's ready for everybody. That means that Hilti and Fujitsu, but also Staple, are using our solution on a daily basis. And BearingPoint will address how they solve their pain points. As you see, we live by happy customers, where you see that Swiss and Daxter are happy to quote why they bought, and they're working together with us. Having this said, thank you for let me introduce the company. I'll hand over to Evelyn Stam, who's sitting next to me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Wietse, and thank you for everyone joining this web conference. Yes, let me go into the contents. What I'd like to do is just quickly tell you who we are. Then I'd like to tell you a little bit about our treasury operations and our pain points. show you a little bit what the past looked like for us, and how we're working now with TIS as our partner. I also want to spend some time telling you about the implementation of TIS and our lessons learned, and hopefully at the end there'll be some time for some questions. Just a bit about BearingPoint. BearingPoint roots back to KPMG. We're an IT and business consulting company, and around 2000 it was split from KPMG, and it then was rebranded as BearingPoint. It used to be also much in the U.S., but eventually there was a management buyout of the European part, and now we're mostly a European country, but we do have global reach through a number of partners, and we're beginning to open up some offices in China, Dubai, and the U.S. as well. As you can see, 553 million, we're a big company, not as big as some of the other big multinationals, but it gives you an idea of maybe the cash flows that we're working with. In terms of our service portfolio, it's just to show you we're in different areas: commercial services, financial services, public services, and we focus on a number of sectors. And maybe an interesting thing why I wanted to show this as well is obviously we're a consulting firm, and in our finance, risk, and compliance group, we have a treasury group, and they are the ones that told us about TIS, helped us make the decision and the business case on why TIS would be a good solution for our treasury group. When Treasury when we did the MBO, the management buyout, it used to be located in Frankfurt. Then we changed the structure of the company and we moved to the Netherlands. And really, about 2 years ago, when I took over as head of Treasury, together with our CFO, we came up with a vision of the future. And looking at the poll that was used a little while ago, I think a lot of you are facing this who are working in Treasury, that what we're finding is we're spending way too much time on operational activities and not enough on strategic activities. And by operational activities, I'm thinking of the time it takes for us to put a balance report together, which is something we do on a daily basis. This is done through a number of systems that we use, a number of emails from some of the areas where we don't have access to the banks, for example, Russia. We are quite involved in payments at the moment as a treasury group, and also, for example, when we need to do an audit, because we work with many different systems, this takes quite a bit of time. Maybe another point to mention is signing rights. It's very difficult sometimes to have the transparency of who can sign where and what the limits are. And we had an example where someone left the company in one of our countries, and it took us a long time to be able to change the signing rights there, and we needed to go through notaires. So I think pain points are definitely there. So for us it was the vision is to reduce this, make it much more streamlined. We also wanted to reduce the number of banks we had, so there's also a bank harmonization initiative. So this is what we were faced with about 2 years ago, and one of the first things we did was to think about bank harmonization and reducing our number of banks. And maybe just for the next question, how many e-banking systems do you work with? Well, in our situation, and I think the poll will be coming up, but I'll just continue with the presentation. In our situation, we found ourselves with many different systems, which resulted in, one, you needed to be extremely organized to make sure that you remembered all your passwords left and right, and it was obviously very inefficient to go from one system to the other to do payments, because as I said before, our treasury department was highly involved in doing payments. And as you can imagine, if someone were to lose the different tokens, it would take weeks to set it all up again. So this is an issue that we were facing, and I think the next slide shows you the way we were, and even this diagram, I think, makes it look simple, because what we found ourselves with were many different systems, and there were a number of local systems that Treasury had access to, but there were also local payment systems that we didn't have access to. We had systems that we used for batches for a number of countries. And as I said, there were systems that were standalone that were being used in different countries that we didn't have access to. So, again, it was difficult to even draw this picture and not efficient to go from system to system. So what we decided to do was to think about how can we improve this, and we thought about a bank solution, and we then, as I said before, the partner in charge of Treasury introduced us to TIS, and once we understood what TIS meant for us, putting this, comparing the two options, it became clear to us that there were many advantages to being able to work with TIS as a partner. For us, it meant that we could remain multi-bank. Although we wanted to reduce the number of banks, we still realized that in some countries it was important to keep certain banks for many reasons. We do have two house banks, but we left the countries to also have a local bank where needed. So the ability to be multi-bank was a big, for us, a big advantage. And it was also an advantage to us to not have to have the fact that it was not a system that we would have to administer, but that TIS would be taking out a lot of the work, the hard work to actually ensure that that our payment formats can talk to the banks. And as we've introduced TIS now into our company, as Rita was saying before, the whole notion of smart payments is definitely there. We have an overview of all of our information, all of our bank accounts in one place. This gives us very quick visibility of where the cash is. We're also able to do reporting. We push on one. Out of one fingertip, we can get an overview of all of our accounts, which before took us a few hours. It's integrated in our SAP system, so people are doing payments in SAP. It's been integrated through the plugin that was mentioned by Rita, and then sent out to the banks. We collect the statements through TIS, and they are then go back into our SAP system, and we have posting rights, posting rules, which means, again, a lot less work for us to have this straight-through processing of our payments. I think we can't underestimate the difference it makes in terms of bank account management, because what it means in TIS is that we have the notion of a super user, which is a technical user that is set up with the banks, and it's a one user. But then within the TIS system, we're able to assign new people who can sign. So we have much more control over this, and obviously we've set this up with audit, so that we can't just enter new people and get rid of people. There's a process inside. But it just means we don't have this lengthy paperwork with the banks to set up people to sign, to determine their limits. And again, we have this overview at our fingertips. For us, the SEPA was also a big advantage. Of course, we needed to make sure that we had the right SEPA data. But in terms of all the formats going to the banks, TIS took this out of our hands. And lastly, the compliance, I've gone through this a few times with audit. It was a very painful process to have to do compliance in all of the systems we had. And now in TIS, because our payments are all going through TIS, our audit people have access to TIS, and it's very easy to see, to do an audit trail, to see what's been changed, to see who's approved payments, to do searches. So again, all of these things are big advantages for using TIS for us. And we use it. We only have one token. So instead of the whole bag of tokens that we used to have to carry along with us and always got stopped at the airport, we only have one token, which has made our life a lot easier. Yeah, maybe just this diagram, it looks very complicated, but maybe what I just want to highlight here is it's basically the same story. At the top, the customer IT is let's say, BearingPoint. At the bottom are the banks. And what's happening in the middle is that TIS is taking this out of our hands with what they call a meta model. So they have all the information on the formats, the protocols, and the security that the banks require. So this is something we no longer need to set up internally. Which again is for our SAP people. We don't have a big SAP team. It's a huge advantage not to have to think about this, to have this basically outsourced. Anything you want to say? No. Okay. Then, looking at, if I go back to our triangle, this is, of course, where we want to be. We want to be able to, have a very quick overview of the data and be able to see it in a way that that it means more to us, that it jumps out, wow, the cache is all there, or see trends. And this is what we're working on with TIS at the moment, to really think through what's the information we want at our fingertips. We already have some of it, but this is an area that's still being developed as we're working together. And I think, this is obviously going to make a big difference to us to have this information more easily at our fingertips. In terms of implementing TIS, we started this last year around May. As I said, we have about 20 countries that we needed to go to. Our view was that we wanted to have all of these countries in TIS, not only the statements, but also doing payments. So together with TIS, we did an onboarding, we quickly set up a steering group. And I think that helped us a lot to have very strong steering group. Our CFO was involved, our IT director was involved, and TIS was heavily involved. Jörg was in our steering group, Rita was in the steering group. So on a regular basis, we could monitor how it was going and identify issues and move forward. And again, as I said before, the vision, I think our CFO has a very strong view on how he sees payments in BearingPoint. And that is, for example, that our treasury department has much more of a monitoring role, and that we're not doing these payments. The way we've done it is that the local groups do the payments, and we monitor, and above a certain limit, we are involved in the payment. Strong project management is essential. This is because you need to work with the different banks. We had a lot of banks to work with, and depending on the bank, some are easy to set up, others take a bit more time. TIS has contacts with a number of banks. There were a few that needed to be set up. For all banks, there's documentation to be signed. There's documentation to be signed internally. I think here, if you set it up as a very good project with clear action points, then it can go pretty quickly. But it is a time-consuming job, unfortunately, and I think everyone realizes. There's still many requirements when working with banks, so that took us a bit of time. Ensure you have right skills and expertise. We pulled in our SAP expert. He needed to be brought into the project after our first pilot, which actually was Germany, which is also one of our biggest offices. The SAP person was German. I think having gone through that learning curve, after that he was probably our biggest champion, because I think he also realized the advantage it would be for his team working with TIS. So crucial to have a person like that, and crucial to have the local finance people with us and really onboarded, training them on how to use TIS. And in some countries it was easier than others. Sometimes we did a webinar to just train them on the TIS platform, and in an hour or two, because it's not a very difficult platform to work with. But in others, they really wanted to be, face to face, and that you really explained why we were doing this and what it would mean to them. Because of course we were changing the way they were working. We used this as a way to create change. SEPA was coming, so I think people were quite happy to see that we were pushing the SEPA implementation and that this would help us to become SEPA compliant. It also gave a bit of a burning platform to move quickly, because we needed to have the SEPA data in our systems in order to be able to use TIS, because the formats were SEPA. So it helped us to implement SEPA. Bank harmonization as well. This was a big goal for us to reduce the number of banks and to move to our house banks. And again, going to TIS made it easier, because once the bank was on board with TIS, it made it very easy to have the connection in the next country. So here and there, we moved more quickly than we would have otherwise. Streamlining of the payment process. Here and there, we were doing payments across the board, in general, with a 4I principle. So what we now have, we have a platform to make sure that everyone has limits. We have a better way to monitor that these limits are accessed, are followed. We also, ensure that payments are done on time. It helped us to be able to monitor that the payments are done, that we're not taking risks in how we're doing our payments. Tax payments are done on time, that type of thing. And all the countries now know that above a certain limit, Treasury is involved. And we now have a way to be involved. And finally, the bank account management. Here, I think it's a huge pain point for many companies, making sure that banks aren't opened left and right in different countries, that we have control of that there's a clear policy. Again, the signing rights are managed. Having TIS allows us to be able to see this information about our banks, be able to know who has the limits, and be able to change that without having to go through a lengthy process. The time to implement TIS here, we were quite optimistic, and I think that's always good to be. But I think here certain banks took longer than others to jump on the train. So that was, that we just went through that. You need to explain things to them. Sometimes the formats were a bit complicated. It is a complicated language and area. And again, that's probably a reason to work with TIS to move to this future. And I think the next point is, yes, we were therefore needed to be flexible, because if certain banks were easier to implement than others, it just meant let's move to that country in terms of our payments first. So here and there we changed the way we thought we would be implementing, and we moved a little bit with how fast the banks could move. And I think the last point is very important. I think from a Treasury point of view, we could see the outcome so easily, and we could also see how much it changed our lives to be able to have one system instead of 10 different systems to work with, and one, contact center in case anything was wrong, rather than 10 different contact centers. So therefore, I think that was helpful for us to keep that in mind in implementing TIS. And finally, I think this is a nice overview of all the advantages and all the reasons why we moved to TIS. I think I've said most of these before. For us, it's been an exciting project. It still is. There's still work to be done in terms of thinking about the future. But I think our experience so far has definitely been worthwhile. So I think that's my story. Hope I didn't speak too fast.
If you open the questions.
Yeah.
We have questions here. Maybe you can open it on your PC. So we are happy to take questions for your site.
On the chat or
on the questions if you open,
Okay.
You have a lot of questions.
Okay.
We do have a lot of questions for the panelists.
Can I just ask, can everyone see the questions?
I don't think so.
No, they cannot. So we'll have to read them out loud. So what I can do, I can leave the question out loud for you, and then you can answer them. That way individuals will know what the question is.
Yeah, okay.
So the first question that we received was, how do you manage the compliance checks when a third party like TIS is involved in the payment process?
Oh,
this one.
Like involved in the payment. How do you manage the compliance checks when a third party like TIS is involved in the payment process? And I'm wondering what you mean by compliance checks here.
The system, the basic of the payment is done. The file is done in the SAP on an SAP system, and then it's straight through to the TIS platform. The TIS platform is a secure channel. We don't see any data, any payments, any data in this, and only the metadata is translating to formats, different countries, to the gateways and the security channels. So if it's not compliant in the beginning of the process, it will never be compliant in the outcome. You can check the payments on the embargo. So we have another system available where you can check if it's allowed to pay for in a certain country, if you mean this question.
Yeah, and I think from our side, we have obviously the payment process where we have, we still need to have a document that's signed by two people, and then it goes into SAP, and within SAP, we then ensure that it's signed again, and then in TIS, we have a 4i principle as well.
Maybe an interesting moment, when you started, you were gathering all the information with signatory rights, and it was a paper-based Excel story where somebody were leaving the company, were not even allowed, and maybe of the example that somebody was still on paper in the company for the bank, and you were not allowed to do some work.
We couldn't sign anymore, so now that's done in TIS. I hope that's clear. If not, then please contact again.
This is another one. It's a nice one.
Okay. Do you want to go to the next question?
Yes, certainly. So our next question that came in from the audience is, how do you still have paper bank documents establishing the signatories and limits? Secondly, they would like to know more about using the e-banking systems and how you were only able to, if you only use one security token from TIS.
Okay. So in terms of paper bank documents establishing the signatories and limits, in general, obviously there's the historic, the bank knows a number of people who can sign. We haven't changed that. What we've done is we've added the technical user, so this super user to the bank, so they know this super user as a person who can sign, and all payments now need to go through TIS. So therefore, in TIS, we don't have to have the bank documents anymore. So if a new person comes into BearingPoint and needs to sign, we only need to add them to TIS. So no bank documents are required anymore. But for existing people to sign, they're still there, and we're probably working on ending that because we're not using the e-banking systems anymore. So the second part, I don't understand how you got away from using the e-banking systems. Again, these e-banking systems are still there. We're talking now about shutting them where necessary, but the idea is, of course, that everything goes through TIS. And TIS can do everything the e-banking system can do, or almost everything. Here and there, there might still be some things that are not yet in TIS, some functionality, maybe certain things that some of these banking systems have quite a bit of functionality. But for the key things, for the payments, we don't need to use the e-banking systems anymore. Okay?
Okay. So our next question is, what regulatory controls are in place on TIS?
Sorry again, so I missed that question. Maybe that's the line.
The regulatory.
Oh, sorry, the regulatory controls are in place on TIS.
And here, if I understand this correctly, these are about regulatory controls in different countries. And what we have here in TIS, and we're working with TIS on this as well, to have in the formats the regulatories as part of the mask. So when we're filling in the payments, it automatically knows that a regulatory code is required and can be added to TIS. So I think hopefully that's what you mean by the regulatory controls. Yeah. Yes. Sweeping is not available in TIS. No, and topping is not available in TIS either. No, this would need to be done.
So that's mainly a treasury functionality.
Yeah.
With the bank. Okay.
Okay.
Next question.
How did you manage to streamline payment processing with international currency payments, especially in the context of regulation evolutions, examples, local clearing codes, purpose of payment codes, etc.?
Yes, I think here we're in terms of streamlining. I mean, these payments are still being done by the local groups. So that's one. And then secondly, again, is working with TIS on all of these detailed requirements that you have in the different countries to add this to the TIS mass. So we worked where necessary, where we have these codes. For example, in Switzerland, we have the ESR payments. In the Nordics, we work with the OCR and the KID payments. There are different types of formats, and each time we're doing this together with TIS to make sure that this works.
Okay.
Yeah. So a follow-up question that was sent from someone else is, do you hold accounts in many currencies or mainly euro? How is the reconciliation/visibility improved in your system?
Yeah, we are, as you can see from the first slide, we're mainly euro-based, although we do have other currencies, but it's probably not as many currencies as some other groups. TIS can report in different currencies, but the reconciliation, what we do at the moment in terms of our balance report that comes out of TIS, that's automatically, the currencies are automatically turned into euros. So in that sense, we have an overview in euros. And in terms of the reconciliation, that's also done by our finance people. So that's maybe something we wouldn't, necessarily be trying to do in TIS.
If you do cross-currency payments, how is the FX rate transparency or the hedging strategy linked to your system?
Let's see. Yeah, here we don't do a lot of cross-currency payments. I'm just trying to think. You want to answer this? I've got my colleague Nick here as well, Nick Tuinman, and he's going to answer this.
When we do cross-currency payments, we have the payment file is sent to the bank. So we will get the rate from the bank and not from TIS. So if we have, for example, we pay US dollars from our euro account, the bank is converting the US dollars against euros at their own rate. So we can send the payments from TIS, but the bank is deciding about the rate, of course.
Yeah, so a hedging strategy linked to your systems, it's in TIS at the moment, there's not a detailed strategy, and it's also something that we because we're so euro-based, don't have that much need for.
And our intention is that we are not a treasury system, another treasury system. We are focusing on the payment part and liquidity and bank relation, which is addressing a bigger pain point in many organizations where there are really good treasury systems already in place or in the market where we're connecting and we're working together with.
Okay. All right, so moving on to the next question. Does TIS conduct EBAM, example, sending ISO 20022 XML files to banks to open or close accounts and change signers?
Yes, the answer is yes. As you see that we started in the early days with the bank account manager, where all your master data is collected in. Now we have the connections with the banks to open and close bank accounts and to do the communication part via our XML bridge, XML adapter. That's what we are now working on. We're working with some banks already to find out when their customers are ready. It's a kind of chicken and an egg situation where banks are waiting for customers and customers are waiting for banks. We are now in that process to implement these solutions as well.
Can you manage your trade confirmations from your separate bank accounts or separate banks within TIS?
No, that's because our trade is not in TIS. This is a payment platform, and the trade confirmations are for treasury deals, and the treasury deals are not in the TIS platform.
Yeah.
So the next question is, what are the biggest savings for your company after the implementation of TIS? Was it support, time spending on reporting? What would you say you save the most in?
Yeah, I think it's time spent on reporting, but it's also time spent on doing payments. Not moving from one system to the other, and it's also, I think, the time spent on the actual keeping up of the system. We had systems that two big systems here that needed to be administered by people, and that will no longer be necessary.
Great. Another question that came in is, are you structured as a payment factory? Do you make payments on behalf of SEPA or non-SEPA?
No, we are very decentralized in our payments. So we have all the different countries do their own payments. And we, as the holding company, we obviously do payments for the holdings. We do our treasury payments, intercompany payments from there. We do intercompany loans from the holding. But other than that, it's very much decentralized. And we do as much SEPA as we can, obviously, where we are in Europe.
Okay.
So, but there are non-SEPA payments being done in the system.
We don't have an in-house bank, so we don't do any payments on behalf of.
No. Another question that came in is, how is the security arranged with the bank? Is it a host-to-host connection, SwiftNet?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again, because the line is a little bit bad?
Yes. How is the security arranged with the bank? Host-to-host connection, SwiftNet?
Here we have a variety. It's with certain banks it's host-to-host. With others it's an EBIX connection, and sometimes it's a SWIFT. Do you see where the question is? No.
It depends per bank. In the German banks, we have the connection via EBIX. For our two main banks, we have a host-to-host connection, and for For the three main banks, we have host-to-host connections, and we have some Swift connections. And that's Swift connections for MT940 bank statements and also for MT101s for payment files.
But we are working with customers to develop the host-to-host connectors. So that means that if a strategic bank for customers are not in our list, that we are putting them in that next release, and it's available for every customer. Because I saw also a question about the pricing regarding what is the price setup. The pricing is the transparent pricing model. What means that it's a SaaS model. You pay as you grow or you pay as you use. And that's a very transparent model. So you immediately know exactly how, if your business is growing or you're reducing your number of bank accounts or the SAP or non-SAP systems. It's a very transparent model. We're not charging for any transactions over our platform. That means that we don't work as a service bureau where every payment file is also charged separately.
So I think maybe we can go to the question and mandate. Because I think the price, did we answer the pricing model?
The pricing model, I think, I answered.
Yeah. So how many mandates were needed in your treasury to implement the solution? Coming from a consulting background, normally for consulting projects you would know this exactly. I think in our case it's quite difficult to say because one, we didn't, we didn't document it in detail. But I think, from, let's say, our treasury group, there's three of us. I think two of us were spending, certainly in the first phases, quite a bit of our time on this solution. Once you have, 80% of your business in there, which is a couple of big countries, then it became a lot less time-consuming. But still, we are working on this. On a daily basis to continue to work with the system, learn it, and make sure that it's the way we want it to be.
What are the questions which are not answered so far?
All right, so we do have a few more, and we have about 5 minutes to answer them. So we'll see how many we can get through within the time remaining. One or two questions are, how long did it take to implement the solution, and what was the cost?
Yeah, in terms of how long it took, I think there again, let's say we started around May last year. The first few countries, let's say we tried to start with a couple of our biggest countries. That took let's say 4 months to get those into TIS. So after 4 months, we were really, I think 80% of our business was in there. Other countries such as Abu Dhabi, China, a couple of other countries we're still working on. So we're still continuing with the last countries and even new countries where we're opening up. So it's a process that's kind of ongoing as well, and we're constantly improving how we're using it, working with our internal clients to make sure that they're happy with it. They give us some feedback. We work with TIS to let them know, could this be altered a bit. So it feels like it's become part of our DNA to work with TIS and to ensure that it's continually evolving. But for the biggest part, I would say 4 months.
And how much money did you save with the new solution?
Yeah, in terms of money saved, we look at it in terms of FTEs that we were able to save on administering the big two systems that we talk about. And in terms of our time, we're much more able now to work on our other activities rather than working on payments. So it's part, FTE costs that we're looking at it in mainly. We obviously did a business case. It's not something, I think for us, I think the benefits that we see have been much more in just to be able to have better information at our fingertips, and we didn't really detail the cost savings as a number. We did to begin with. It's not something our management has looked at. You know, they're very happy to see the bank harmonization taking place. They're happy to see that the bank account management is in place, which again I think everyone realizes how much easier it makes it to follow who can sign where and to add new or delete people from our bank accounts. Also, it allows us to put our policies in place for bank account management so that we can monitor where banks are open and where not. So I think it's hard to put an exact number on our savings, but there have been savings and there have been many benefits.
So a big topic that's out there, especially in the financial sector and most sectors in general, is security and just making sure that you're protected against any electronic threats that may come through. So one question that was posed is, do you feel safe in the cloud?
It's a good question because I think that was a big advantage that our IT director was involved up front. I think she very quickly understood what this meant. We also are an asset-based consultancy where we work with other solutions a little bit similar. So I think we're used to working like this. So yes, I think we feel very safe in the cloud. Yeah, you know, we're confident that security that's being used by TIS has all the protocols that we would require. But that's why it's important, I think, to have your IT people understand this and work with you to begin with.
And to comment on this, we are ISO certified, also in our data centers, but also in our complete process and development streams. We are doing on a regular basis penetration tests with well-known security specialists.
I can see one more question. Can I do that?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, I see a question whether or not you need to download any hardware to access your solution, so tied to one machine. No, this is obviously a big advantage. You can use it on all machines. You could use it on your iPad, and that, of course, and there's no downloading at all. It's simply, you know, typing in to the TIS website, and then there's support on there as well. So that makes it very, very simple to work with. Okay.
I saw also a question on the format of the bank account statements. We received the bank account statements in MT940 format.
And 942.
Yeah, and the interim statements in 942.
I'd say if anyone has questions that they'd really like to ask, feel free to contact Nick Tuinman or myself, Evelyn Stam, or Rita, of course.
Yeah, no problem.
The expert. and yeah, thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you thank you, Nick and Evelyn, for explaining all these questions and answering these questions and explaining what you have done and share your experience with a broad audience. From my side, also thanks for joining today, and I will hand over to Rita.
Thank you so much, Rita and Evelyn, for your very insightful presentation. And for the attendees, we certainly hope this webinar has given you a glimpse and greater insight into the future of innovative bank relationship management. Once again, thank you to TIS for sponsoring today's webinar. Just as a reminder, a recording will be sent out to the attendees within a week's time, and we look forward to welcoming you to another GT News webinar in the future. Many thanks and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.